Guys, there's been such a new slew of awesome budget watches coming out that we've had to split our efforts here at Anachronist. So Caden's been spending his past week with the new Casio Edifice, which is actually Casio's very first mechanical watch. And I'm working on this guy. You'll see that video coming up soon. So
when Max and I learned that Casio was making a mechanical watch, we knew that we had to get hands-on with it as soon as possible. We know them as the brand that makes legendary digital watches. We think of the F91W, the CA53W, the AE1200, and their massive line of G-Shocks. A certain YouTube personality might even call it a god tier brand.
I get really dirty with that, like I love it.
And I'm gonna share with you guys 3 things that really blew me away about this watch, and 1 factor that could potentially hold this watch back. For over a week now, I have had Casio's brand new mechanical watch in. I've been wearing it on my wrist, I've been getting some shots with it. I've been really just observing the watch because I'm not sure about you, but my reaction when I first heard that Casio was making an automatic watch, I honestly thought it might have been April Fool's Day. But I can confirm that this is no April Fool's joke. We actually have a mechanical watch from Casio. So what is it that we actually have here? This is known as the Casio Edifice EFK 100. It's obviously Casio's first automatic watch. This is an integrated bracelet stainless steel watch with a case size of 39 millimeters, a lug to lug of 43.5 millimeters, and a thickness of 12.5 millimeters. Though this watch is an integrated bracelet watch, the way Casio have designed this watch, it really kind of does look like a traditional watch, but the bracelet is not detachable in the traditional way. The bracelet terminates down to a milled clasp with a really smooth action and an overall feel that left me impressed. The dial on this watch is textured and is a blue color, and the way I would describe this dial is it looks like the waters. In super direct sunlight, it's a very vibrant blue, and in less bright lighting, it's a very subtle dark blue, with different parts of the dial being brighter and darker, and of course having that overall texture throughout the dial. This watch has a date at 6 o'clock, an angled rehot with markings for each minute, and minimal dial text with the Edifice Casio logo being at the forefront, with automatic being just above the date. This watch has 100 meters of water resistant. It does not have a screw down crown, and the movement on the inside is the Seiko NH35. The way I see it is this is a huge collaboration between Seiko and Casio. This movement has about 40 hours of power reserve. It tells you the time and the date. It beats at 3 hertz. And though this is, in my opinion, a bit of an unexciting movement, there is no denying that this is a workhorse movement. The first thing that really surprised me when I was holding this watch was the finishing in the case and the bracelet. Throughout this watch, you'll see 2 different finishings: satin brushing and high polish. The areas on this watch that have satin brushing have a very deep linear brush that I feel like is noticeably deeper than in other watches. The lines are very straight, very vertical lines, and it doesn't feel like they really cut corners when it comes to finishing on the case and the bracelet. On the areas of this watch that have high polish, when you're taking a closer look at it, you can really see the mirror-like finish that it has, with very little distortion on the parts that are polished. When we get into the dial, and specifically looking at the indices, with the top of the indices being vertically brushed and the sides of the indices being polished. That combination really gives the dial some life when you're outside in the light, and as you're moving your wrist around, you can see how the light reflects off of the indices. The finishing continues down into the bracelet, having kind of an H-link style design, where the H portion of the link is fully brushed, and the center link is both brushed and polished at an angle. Again, continuing with the common theme of the finishing on this watch, that combination really gives it some presence and some pop on the wrist, especially when there's light around. I'll be honest, I was a little bit worried that when this watch came, the bracelet was going to be a letdown factor of this watch, and it actually turned out to be one of the things I was most surprised about. We just discussed how the finishing of it is nice, but the overall feel of the bracelet just doesn't feel flimsy like I thought it was going to be. The links are adjusted with pins rather than screws, and this bracelet is slightly jingly jangly when you shake it, but it was mostly the clasp that I was really impressed with. Where most watch brands at this price point are giving you a stamped clasp, Casio actually opted for a milled clasp. This clasp has a double button release system, and the action when you're closing it and opening it is very smooth. You get 2 spots for micro adjustment, which to be honest really is not that great, but I mean, at least you have something. The bracelet is really comfy on the wrist, and in combination to the case and the head of the watch, it really just complements it very well. Obviously, we gotta talk about the dial. The dial is the first thing that for me, my eyes are really drawn to when I'm seeing a new watch. And when I took the wrapping off of this watch and I looked at it in the light, I was shocked at how good this dial actually is. I'm not the biggest fan of blue dials, but on this watch, I actually really like it. In direct sunlight, this dial is a very vibrant, punchy blue, almost as if you're looking at a lake when the sun is directly over it. And when you step inside or if it's cloudy, it also mimics a lake when there's clouds above and the water is darker. It has that nice texture to it. And though I'm not a big blue dial guy, I actually really do like the way that they did this blue dial. The dial texture is kind of supposed to mimic the forged carbon, and the way that they do this is by electroplating the dial. I'm not a scientist, and I don't super know what that means, but that's pretty cool. This watch is good, but it is not perfect, and there's one thing that's kind of holding it back for me, and that is the accuracy of the NH35 movement. Casio quote this watch as being accurate to a window of about -35 to +45-ish seconds, and I believe that they're using an unregulated NH35 in this watch. In my testing, I have found that on wrist, this watch gains about 15 seconds a day, and for the price point, that's absolutely acceptable, but I really would have liked to see them at least put a regulated version in that's a little bit more accurate. But I mean, we're getting really nitpicky here because for the price, this movement is just so solid. The shock protection system in this movement makes it really robust for drops. Later down the road, if you ever need to service this movement is really cheap to even just replace straight out. And so I think it totally makes sense to be in this watch, but kind of the way I see it, that is the one factor about it that is, for me, a little bit of a letdown. Overall, I think this watch is just awesome. I think Casio have killed it, and I think that there are 3 main competitors to this watch. The first one being the Citizen Tsuyosa, specifically the 37mm version, but both the 41 and the 37mm are both good alternatives. You can get the Tsuyosa for a very similar price. The movement specs are very similar. It is also an integrated bracelet watch. With the Tsuyosa, there are way more dial colors and variations to choose from, and with Citizen being another Japanese powerhouse brand, I think it's a really good alternative to this watch. Obviously, we gotta mention the Seiko 5, because low-key, the Casio Edifice is kind of like a Casio Seiko mod, kinda. Like literally any of the Seiko 5s I think would be a good comp because you can get them for very, very close to almost the exact same price. They have the same movement, and with so many different designs to pick from, I think the Casio's closest competitor is the Seiko 5. Sticking within that integrated bracelet theme, I think if you're looking at used watches specifically, a used Tissot PRX can be had for a little bit more than you would spend on the Casio. And if you go for the quartz version of the PRX, you can get it for roughly that same price. But the way I see it, all 4 of these watches are killer in and of themselves. And I'm personally really excited to see what Casio is going to do in the future, having just stepped through the door of the mechanical watch world. I think for the price of this watch, it's kind of a no-brainer purchase, especially if you love Casio and you have a lot of Casios. But I'm curious to know what your guys' thoughts are on this new Casio watch. In the description of this video is a link to our Anachronist Discord. Come on over and join the conversation and let's talk about some Casio watches. I personally appreciate you if you are watching to the very end of this video. It really helps us out, and I think that's a wrap, so goodbye.